We got Cappriccieo Scates in the building with us from SESAC. Appreciate you coming in, man.
No, thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Let me talk about the background for a second. You know, how'd you get into the music industry, and what interested you to get with SESAC?
I started out as a drummer. I went from that to playing very little bass guitar. From there, I got an opportunity. Actually, from there, I started doing independent promotions as far as radio, retail, club, street promotions, working for Sony, Universal, Tommy Boy, Atlantic, Death Row. From there, I got an opportunity to go to Rough House Columbia, where I did national radio promotions. I promoted Crisscross, the Fuji, Cypress Hill. I wrote a book on artist management called 10 Steps to Successfully Managing Recording Artists that was published in October '04. So, you know, I just seemingly have been doing music for all my life. I think it sort of chose me, to be honest with you.
Right. So
we hear that a lot.
Yeah.
We hear that. It's like very few people say that they chose it. It's more like that it chose them.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
what brought you in? I mean, how did you get started?
I think, man, I always try to think back, you know, from the very time when I started playing drums, and I think that was about 5 years old, just in church and hanging around the ministers of music and just sort of being indoctrinated into that whole world of music. And so I try to think about the time when I first got into music, but it seems like it's been forever, to be honest with you. So I don't even know the very moment. I just know that I've been doing it seemingly all my life.
Now talk about the book for a second. You said you wrote a book in 2004.
Correct.
You know, tell me more about that.
Well, it's a book. It's interesting. I don't really talk much about the book. When I wrote that book, quite honest, I was being selfish. And the reason why I wrote the book was because I had worked with so many people throughout my career who you would know if you seen them out, but if you see me, you wouldn't know me. So I said, you know, I'm the guy that lays over the puddle. There's a puddle on the ground. They walk over my back. No one gives me a towel to dry myself off with. I want some accolades. I want people to talk about me and how great I am. And so I figured I'd write this book. It'll be succinct. It'll be articulate. And it'll have all the wonderful, great things about me inside of the book. And so I would give it to folks and say, hey, read it. Read the book. Tell me what you think. And I think they come back and say, oh, Cap, man, you the man. You're great. I didn't know you did, blah, blah, blah. But what I learned was people kept coming back and saying, thank you. And I'm like, thank you. Yeah, I'm like, man, what does this have to do with you? But they say, thank you. The way you said such and such, it really changed my approach, and I appreciate you. And so I heard that so much till I finally started to realize that it had absolutely nothing to do with me, but everything that I was given to give back to other folks. And so even when I was trying to be difficult and not help someone, I actually wrote a book to help people. So, you know, as little did I know, I was, you know, doing exactly the reverse of what I thought I was trying not to do.
Now, speaking of which, I've seen you out at several events. You know, you've been out there talking about SESAC, giving information for folks out there. What made you go to SESAC, and what got you involved with them?
Well, actually, I heard that SESAC was going to be opening an office in Atlanta, so I called Trevor Gale, the Senior Vice President of Writer and Publisher Relations, my boss, and I said that, you know, I heard you guys are opening an office, and he says, well, we're going to see what we can see. And so I said, well, I want to send my resume. He says, send your resume. And I think that was in October '05, actually. And June '06, I got a call. He said, send your resume. And then I did the interview. And, of course, the rest is history. And so the cool part about it is we get to make history every day. It's the first time that SESAC has had a satellite office. And so we make history every single day. So that's cool.
Now, tell us about SESAC. What does it mean, and what is it?
Well, the company was founded in 1930, and initially it stood for the Society of European Stage Authors and Composers. However, in 1940, we began representing the interests of American songwriters, so they did away with the name SESAC in its original format in terms of what it stood for. I always like to joke and say it stands for Send Every Songwriter a Check, and so that's what SESAC stands for, because everybody's always like, what does SESAC stand for? So, but, you know, originally it stood for the Society of European Stage Authors and Composers. The founder, Paul Heineke, you know, came over from Europe and started representing the interests of European songwriters initially, and then started representing American songwriters.
And then what does SESAC do?
Our primary responsibility is anytime you hear music being played on the radio, if you're sitting in a restaurant and you hear music, if you're on an elevator and you hear music, if you're watching television, hear music, wherever music's being played publicly or performed live, it's our job to collect those royalties and to pay those to the songwriters and publishers.
Now, it's necessary for a songwriter or an artist to actually come register. Is that correct?
That is correct if they want to get paid.
If they want to get paid.
Absolutely.
What is that process like?
Well, generally, you know, maybe it starts with a phone call, starts with an email, and, you know, I get an opportunity to sit down with those folks and actually hear their music, vibe with them a little bit, find out what their interests are, what their goals are, and then, you know, we make a determination as to whether or not we want to affiliate them.
Does it matter who it is, or a type of music, or how does that work?
No, we work with all genres. Actually, I've signed someone as young as 9, so
Wow.
even you can see it at a very young age sometimes. So it's all genres.
And how do you tell, like, say for instance somebody comes in and they have music but they don't know what they're doing? How do you explain to them how you will benefit them and how they will benefit you?
Well, I think first of all you have to be very careful in that you get across to those folks exactly what it is that you do and really understand what their goals are and try to just form that relationship. I think that's the biggest thing with us. Unlike the other guys, and not a knock to those guys, but if you're joining online, I don't know if you're tall, if you're short, if you're commercially viable. I don't know anything about you, and so with us, I'm getting that opportunity to sit with you, look at you eye to eye. I mean, it's a very integral process that happens as well. So.
Now, what's the difference between someone signing with ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC? Because everyone says they're going to get the money, the royalties for an artist for the songs that are getting played. What's the difference between someone signing with ASCAP and SESAC if they're going to get the money either way?
Well, the difference really, it all boils down to the personal relationship. We each have different systems in how we operate. ASCAP has over 500,000 affiliate members. BMI has over 500,000 affiliates. We have just over 17,000. ASCAP was formed first in 1914. We came second in 1930. BMI came third in 1939. Obviously, there was 9 years between the inception of SESAC to the point when BMI came on the scene. If we wanted to sign the most writers, we had a 9-year jump. That was never the goal. It was about being hands-on, being personable, providing a specific service, and so even 80 years later, that's the same way the company operates.
So can someone sign up with ASCAP and SESAC and BMI, or do they only have to be with one organization?
As a songwriter, you can only affiliate with one or the other. However,
Gotcha.
as a publisher, you can affiliate with all three, because generally the publisher is administrating the catalog of other songwriters. So as a result, they would have to be affiliated with all three.
Gotcha, that makes sense. So as a songwriter, you can't double dip or triple dip, so to speak.
No,
Okay.
You can't triple dip.
Now, some of the things we were talking about off the air, which let me just say it this way, y'all. I was asking Cappriccieo about bootlegging. I was saying, let's say you're in a store or whatever, and you see some CDs that belong to Bow Wow. I use Bow Wow as an example because that's one of their SESAC affiliates. I said, do you go grab those CDs and say, hey, man, you're bootlegging? And he said, no, we don't do that. That's not our business. Your business is what?
We collect performance royalties.
And that's based off of what?
Public performances, radio, airplay, restaurants, wherever music's being played publicly or performed live. That's what we do.
So if we're at Boo Boo's barbershop and Boo Boo is playing a CD or playing the radio, he's supposed to be paying for the use of that song?
Correct.
Correct. Is that how it works?
Correct. That's the general
Right.
idea of that. Yes, correct.
And if he does not do that, then he has a couple of options. He can stop playing, because the reason I'm saying that is I didn't know. So I have a barbershop. Now I'm playing music in it. I didn't know. So what are my legal options? Not necessarily. Well, let me rephrase that. Not my legal options. You come in my shop and you see me playing music and you say, hey, Cisco, dude, what's up? How does that work?
Well, it's a little when you start talking barbershops, we're talking more in terms of where music's being used to sort of add to the environment, but there's sort of a fee being charged if people are coming into nightclubs and things like that. So the barbershop might be a little bit different. It's almost, it may even fall into a category where you're watching television and a basketball game and they're playing music in the arena.
Mm-hmm.
Although you can hear it from your television, it's not really the television station is not really responsible for that, even though you can still hear it. So it's sort of a little bit different. The barbershop is a little different, but for the most part, we're trying to license all the places where music's being played publicly, and there's folks are getting paid, or there's an entry fee or something.
So you're going to a club, or
Right.
there's karaoke or
Right.
something along those lines.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
See, that's where I was so confused. I just did not understand that, but now I understand. 404-530-9734. Take some text message questions.
Jay said, Cisco, watch out for the feds.
I'm
Coming for you at Boo Boo's.
Because that's on the mechanical side. So,
Right.
So we deal with the performances.
Okay.
The mechanicals deal with the physical sale of the CD.
And performance doesn't necessarily mean that that person is actually singing it. They could be playing the CD or playing an
Correct.
MP3 or
Correct.
something like that, right?
Right.
So if I got my iPod attached to a set of speakers in a nightclub, that's the same thing.
Correct.
You're going to want some money for that.
Yeah, we're going to want to see you on that one.
Once again, give the contact information.
404-897-1330.
And they can go to CSAC.com.
Of course, CSAC.com. You can reach me, CSCATES at CSAC.com.